Japan-United Kingdom relations is a bilateral and diplomatic relation between Japan and the United Kingdom. History. The history of the relationship between Japan and Britain began in 1600 with the arrival of William Adams on the shores of Kyushu at Uzuki in Oita Prefecture. During the Sakoku period, there were no relations between the two countries, but the Treaty of 1854 saw the resumption of ties which, despite a hiatus during the Second World War, remained very strong up until the present day. On the 3rd of May 2011, British Foreign Secretary William Hague said that Japan is one of our closest partners in Asia. British people had often held the view that Japan was like the Britain of the East, due to certain cultural similarities such as the constitutional monarchy, being an island nation, driving on the left, sense of humor and a perceived emphasis on being polite whilst coming across to others as reserved. Chronology of Japanese-British relations. 1587. Two young Japanese men named Christopher and Cosmas sailed on a Spanish galleon to California, where the ship was seized by Thomas Cavendish. Cavendish brought the two Japanese men with him to England, where they spent approximately 3 years before going again with him on his last expedition to the South Atlantic. They are the first known Japanese men to have set foot in the British Isles. 1600. William Adams, a seaman from Gillingham, Kent, was the first English adventurer to arrive in Japan. Acting as an advisor to the Tokugawa shogun, he was renamed Mura-Anjin, granted a house and land, and spent the rest of his life in his adopted country. 1605. John Davis, the famous English explorer, was killed by Japanese pirates off the coast of Thailand, thus becoming the first known Englishman to be killed by a Japanese. 1613. Following an invitation from William Adams in Japan, the English captain John Saris arrived at Hirado in the ship Clove with the intent of establishing a trading factory. Adams and Saris traveled to Shizuoka, where they met with Tokugawa Ieyasu at his principal residence in September before moving on to Edo, where they met Ieyasu's son Hidetada. During that meeting, Hidetada gave Saris 2 varnished suits of armor for King James I, today housed in the Tower of London. On the way back, they visited Tokugawa once more, who conferred trading privileges on the English through a Red Seal permit giving them free license to abide, buy, sell and barter in Japan. The English party headed back to Hirado on the 9th of October 1613. However, during the 10-year activity of the company between 1613 and 1623, apart from the first ship, only 3 other English ships brought cargoes directly from London to Japan. 1623. The Amboyna massacre occurred. After the incident, England closed its commercial base at Hirado, now in Nagasaki Prefecture, without notifying Japan. After this, the relationship ended for more than 2 centuries. 1639. Tokugawa Ieyasu announced his Sakoku policy. Only the Netherlands was permitted to retain limited trade rights. 1673. An English ship named Returner visited Nagasaki harbor and asked for a renewal of trading relations, but the Edo shogunate refused. The government blamed it on the withdrawal 50 years earlier, and found it unacceptable that Charles II of England married Catherine of Braganza, who was from Portugal, and favored the Roman Catholic Church. 1808. The Nagasaki Harbor Incident. HMS Phaeton enters Nagasaki to attack Dutch shipping. 1832. Otokichi, Kukichi and Iwakichi, castaways from Aichi Prefecture, crossed the Pacific and were shipwrecked on the west coast of North America. The 3 Japanese men became famous in the Pacific Northwest and probably inspired Ronald MacDonald to go to Japan. They joined a trading ship to the UK, and later Macau. One of them, Otokichi, took British citizenship and adopted the name John Matthew Ottoson. He later made 2 visits to Japan as an interpreter for the Royal Navy. 1854, the 14th of October. The first limited Anglo-Japanese friendship treaty was signed by Admiral Sir James Stirling and representatives of the Tokugawa shogunate. 1855. In an effort to find the Russian fleet in the Pacific Ocean during the Crimean War, a French-British naval force reached the port of Hakodate, which was open to British ships as a result of the Friendship Treaty of 1854, and sailed further north, seizing the Russian-American Company's possessions on the island of Europe in the Kuril archipelago. The Treaty of Paris restitutes the island to Russia. 1858. The 26th of August, the Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Amity and Commerce was signed by the Scot Lord Elgin and representatives of the Tokugawa shogunate for Japan, after the Harris Treaty was concluded. 1861. The 5th of July, the British legation in Edo was attacked. 1862. The shogun sends the first Japanese embassy to Europe, led by Takenouchi Yasunori. 1862. The 14th of September, the Namamugi incident occurred within a week of the arrival of Ernest Satow in Japan. 1862–75. British military garrison established at Yamate, Yokohama. 1863. Bombardment of Kagoshima by the Royal Navy. The Choshu 5 go secretly to England. 1864. Bombardment of Shimonoseki by Britain, France, the Netherlands and the USA. 1867. The Icarus Affair, an incident involving the murder of 2 British sailors in Nagasaki, leading to increased diplomatic tensions between Britain and the Tokugawa shogunate. 1869. Alfred, Duke of Edinburgh becomes the first European prince to visit Japan, arriving on HMS Galatea on 4 September 1869. Audience with the Emperor Meiji in Tokyo. 1872. The Iwakura mission visited Britain as part of a diplomatic and investigative tour of the United States and Europe. 1873. The Imperial College of Engineering opened with Henry Dyer as principal. 1885–87. Japanese exhibition at Knightsbridge, London. 1891. The Japan Society of London is founded by Arthur Diosy. 1894. The Anglo-Japanese Treaty of Commerce and Navigation was signed in London on 16 July. The treaty was abolished extraterritoriality in Japan for British subjects with effect from 17 July 1899. 1899. Extraterritorial rights for British subjects in Japan came to an end. 1900. Last sitting of the British Court for Japan. 1902. The Japanese-British alliance was signed in London on 30 January. 1905. The Japanese-British alliance was renewed and expanded. May 1907. Prince Fushimi Sadanaru travels to the UK to give Emperor Meiji's thanks to King Edward VII for bestowing the Most Noble Order of the Garter upon him. 1908. The Japan-British Society was founded in order to foster cultural and social understanding. 1909. Fushimi Sadanaru returns to the UK to convey the thanks of the Japanese government for British advice and assistance during the Russo-Japanese War. 1910. Sadanaru represents Japan at the state funeral of Edward VII and meets the new King George V at Buckingham Palace. The Japan-British exhibition is held at Shepherd's Bush in London. 1911. The Japanese-British alliance was renewed. 1913. The IJN Kongard, the last of the British-built warships for Japan's Navy, enters service. 1914–1915. Japan joined World War I as the United Kingdom's ally under the terms of the alliance and captured German-occupied Tsingtao in China mainland. They also helped Australia and New Zealand capture archipelagos like the Marshall Islands and the Mariana Islands. 1915. The 21 demands would have given Japan varying degrees of control over all of China, and would have prohibited European powers from extending the Chinese operations any further. 1917. The Imperial Japanese Navy helps the Royal Navy and Allied navies patrol the Mediterranean against Central Powers ships. 1919. Japan proposes a racial equality clause in negotiations to form the League of Nations, calling for making no distinction, either in law or in fact, on account of the race and nationality. Britain, which supports the White Australia policy, cannot assent, and the proposal is rejected. 1921. Crown Prince Hirohito visited the UK and other European countries via Singapore. It was the first time that a Japanese crown prince had travelled overseas. 1921. Arrival in September of the Semple mission in Japan, a British technical mission for the development of Japanese aero-naval forces. 1922. Washington Naval Conference concluding in the 4-Power Treaty, 5-Power Treaty, and 9-Power Treaty, major naval disarmament for 10 years with sharp reduction of Royal Navy and Imperial Navy. The treaties specify that the relative naval strengths of the major powers are to be UK equals 5, US equals 5, Japan equals 3, France equals 1.75, Italy equals 1.75. The powers will abide by the treaty for 10 years, then begin a naval arms race. 1922. Edward, Prince of Wales, travelling on HMS Renan, arrives in Yokohama on the 12th of April for a 4-week official visit to Japan. 1923. The Japanese-British alliance was officially discontinued on the 17th of August after U.S. pressure and other factors brought it to a close. 1934. The Royal Navy sends ships to Tokyo to take part in a naval parade in honor of the late Admiral Togo Hashiro, one of Japan's greatest naval heroes, the Nelson of the East. 1937. The Kamikaze, a prototype of the Mitsubishi Ki-15, travels from Tokyo to London, the first Japanese-built aircraft to land in Europe, for the coronation of King George VI and Queen Elizabeth. 1939. The Shinsin incident almost causes an Anglo-Japanese war when the Japanese blockade the British concession in Shinsin, China. 1941. December 7/8. Pacific War begins as the Empire of Japan attacks the United States military base in Pearl Harbor and simultaneously attacks British possessions in Malaya, Singapore, and Hong Kong. 1941 to 1945. As World War II progresses, Japan fights the British Empire and captures British colonies Malaya, Burma, Hong Kong and Singapore. Many British powers die in Japanese captivity. 1945, September 2nd. Aboard the US Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Admiral Sir Bruce Fraser is among the Allied commanders formally accepting the surrender of Japan. 1948. The 1948 Summer Olympics was held in London. Japan did not participate. 1951. Treaty of San Francisco, the peace treaty in which Anglo-Japanese relations were normalized. One condition of the treaty was Japan's acceptance of the judgments of the Tokyo War Crimes Tribunal. 1953. 19-year-old Crown Prince Akihito, current emperor, represents Japan at the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II. 1953. The British Council in Japan established. 1963. The University of Oxford set Japanese as a subject in its Oriental Institute. 1966. The Beatles played at Nippon Budokan in Tokyo to overwhelming adulation. This performance emphasized growing goodwill between Britain and Japan in the foreign relations policies. 1971. Emperor Hirohito pays a state visit to the United Kingdom after an interval of 50 years. 1975. Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom pays a state visit to Japan. 1978. Beginning of the BET scheme first advocated by Nicholas Maclean. 1983. Naruhito studied at Merton College, Oxford until 1985, and researched transport on the River Thames. 1986. Nissan Motors began to operate its car plant in Sunderland as Nissan Motor Manufacturing Limited. 1986. The Prince and Princess of Wales conducted a very successful royal visit. 1987. JET program starts when the BET scheme and the Fulbright Scholarship emerged. 1988. The Daiwa Anglo-Japanese Foundation established. 1990. The Alumni Association for British JET Participants JETAA UK is established. 1991. The first sumo tournament to be held outside Japan is hosted at the Royal Albert Hall in London. 1998. Emperor Akihito pays a state visit to the United Kingdom. 2001. The year-long Japan 2001 Cultural Exchange Project saw a major series of Japanese cultural, educational and sporting events held around the UK. 2001 Junior West gifts his Zero Series Shinkansen to the National Railway Museum at York. She is the only one of her type to be preserved outside Japan. 2007. Emperor Akihito pays his second state visit to the United Kingdom. 2008. Japan, UK 2008 celebrates the 150th anniversary of the Japanese-British Treaty of Amity and Commerce. 2011. UK sends over rescue men with rescue dogs and supplies to help the Japanese after the 11th of March 2011 Tohoku earthquake and tsunami. 2012. A UK trade delegation to Japan, led by Prime Minister David Cameron, announces an agreement to jointly develop weapons systems. May 2012. Before travelling to the UK on a state visit, Emperor Akihito releases a statement of his pleasure at being invited to lunch with Queen Elizabeth II to celebrate her Diamond Jubilee. He also personally thanks the people of the UK for the support to Japan after the 2011 earthquake. 2013. 3 Japanese warships, JDS Kashima, JDS Shirayuki and JDS Isoyuki, visit Portsmouth on a world tour. The 13th of October 2013. The Coldstream Guards parade in Yokohama to celebrate 60 years since Akihito attended the coronation of Queen Elizabeth II, and 400 years of Japanese-British trade. February 2015. Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, on an official visit tours areas devastated by the 2011 tsunami including Fukushima, Ishinomaki, and Onagawa. September 2016. Citing concerns for Japanese-owned business operating in the United Kingdom in the wake of the European Union membership referendum, the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs directly issues a 15-page memorandum on its own website requesting that the British government strike a Brexit agreement safeguarding UK's current trading rights in the European single market. See also the chronology on the British Embassy website in Tokyo. Britons in Japan. William Adams, Rutherford Orcock, diplomat. William George Aston, consular official and Japanologist. William Edward Ayrton, professor of physics and amp telegraphy. Thomas Batty, legal advisor. Felice Beato, British, Italian, Corfiot photographer. Edward Bickersteth, first Anglican Bishop of South Tokyo. Isabella Bird, Victorian traveller and author. John Reddy Black, publisher of newspapers. Duncan Gordon Boys, winner of the Victoria Cross at Shimonoseki, 1864. Richard Henry Brunton, father of Japanese lighthouses. Basil Hall Chamberlain, professor and Japanologist. Edward Bramwell Clark, professor who helped to introduce rugby to Japan. Samuel Cocking, Yokohama merchant. Josiah Conda, architect. Hugh Cortazzi, scholar and former ambassador. James Maine Dixon, former FRSE. After teaching at the Imperial University of Tokyo, he moved to the University of South California. Archibald Douglas, leader of a naval mission to Japan in the early 1870s. Henry Dyer, first principal of the Imperial College of Engineering. Lord Elgin, signed the 1858 treaty. James Alfred Ewing, professor. Hugh Fraser, British minister 1889–94. Thomas Blake Glover, Scottish trader. Abel Gower, consul. William Goland, 1842–1922, father of Japanese archaeology. Thomas Lomar Gray, engineering professor. Arthur Hascoth Groom, creator of the first golf course in Japan. John Harrington Gubbins, diplomat. Joseph Henry Longford, consul and academic. Claude Maxwell MacDonald, diplomat. Ranald MacDonald, the first English teacher in Japan. John Milne, professor and father of seismology. Algernon Bertram Mitford, diplomat. James Murdoch, teacher, journalist, historian. Edward St. John Neal, Lt. Col., Secretary of Legation then Charge d'Affaires 1862–1863. Lawrence Oliphant, Secretary of Legation in 1861. Henry Spencer Palmer, engineer and Times correspondent. Harry Smith Parkes, diplomat. David Peace, novelist, whose most recent novel is set in post-World War II Japan. Jean Perret, colleague of Ayrton at the Imperial College of Engineering, Tokyo. Charles Lennox Richardson, slain in the Namamugi incident. Ernest Mason Satow, diplomat and Japanologist. Alexander Cameron Sim, founder of Kobe Regatta and AMP Athletic Club, introduced lemonade to Japan. Admiral Sir James Stirling, signed the 1854 treaty. Walter Weston, Rev., who publicized the term Japanese Alps. William Willis, Drive. Charles Wergman, editor of Japan Punch. Sir David Warren, ambassador. The chronological list of heads of the United Kingdom mission in Japan. Japanese in the United Kingdom. The family name is given in italics. Usually the family name comes first, but in modern times not so for the likes of Kazuo Ishiguro and Katsuhiko Oku, both well known in the United Kingdom. Aoki Shuzo, diplomat, signed the 1894 treaty in London. Hayashi Tadasu, Inagaki Manjiro, Cambridge University graduate and diplomat. Kazuo Ishiguro, Iwakura Tomomi, see Iwakura mission especially. Kikuchi Deroku, Cambridge University graduate and politician. Mori Aranori, Natsumi Soseki. Shunsuke Nakamura, played for Scottish football club Celtic. Shinji Kagawa, played for English football club Manchester United. Katsuhiko Oku, Oxford University rugby player, diplomat in Japanese embassy in London who died in Iraq, 2003. Posthumously promoted to ambassador. See also the Oku Inoue Fund for the Children of Iraq. Kishichiro Okura, entrepreneur. Hisashi Iwada, Cambridge University graduate, father of Princess Masako. Sumatsu Kensho, Cambridge University graduate and statesman. Ginosuke Tanaka, Cambridge University graduate, introduced rugby to Japan. Togo Hashiro, spent time in the UK, one of Japan's greatest naval heroes, the Nelson of the East. Jamo Yozo, Takahiro Sei, bassist of the band Feeder. Naoko Mori, actress famous for playing Toshiko Sato in Torchwood and Doctor Who. Yuki Amami, actress, studied in England. Genda Minoru, naval attaché and planner of the Pearl Harbor strike. In 1940 he saw Spitfires and Bf-109s in combat over London during the Battle of Britain. Education. In Japan, British school in Tokyo. In the UK, Japanese school in London. Rikyo School in England. Takeo School United Kingdom. Gyosei International School UK. Shitennoji School in UK. List of Japanese diplomatic envoys in the United Kingdom. Ministers Plenipotentiaries Terashima Munori 1872–1873. Kajinori Ueno 1874–1879. Mori Aranori 1880–1884. Masataka Kawase 1884–1893. Aoki Shuzo 1894. Kato Takaaki 1895–1900. Hayashi Tadasu 1900–1905. Ambassadors Hayashi Tadasu 1905–1906. Komura Jutaro 1906–1908. Kato Takaaki second time 1908–1912. Katsunosuke Inoue 1913–1916. Chinda Sutami 1916–1920. Gunsuke Hayashi 1920–1925. Kishiro Matsui 1925–1928. Matsudera Suneo 1929–1935. Shigeru Yoshida 1936–1938. Mamoru Shigemitsu 1938–1941. Shunichi Matsumoto 1952–1955. Haru Hiko Nishi 1955–1957. Katsumi Ono 1958–1964. Morio Yukawa 1968–1972. Haruki Mori 1972. Masaki Orita 2001–2004. Yoshiji Nogami 2004–2008. Shinebihara 2008–2011. Keiichi Hayashi 2011–present.